All right. Hello, everyone. Let me kind of turn this screen so it's not so much sunlight. Hello, 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 everyone. Coach Jay here. I want to make sure y'all can hear me okay. I'm really excited to talk about this topic. I know that this is going to be a little bit of a sensitive subject for some people, but I have some amazing, I guess you could say amazing solutions that I would love to, you know, present to all of you. All right. I'm Coach Jay. I am a business and mindset coach. So I focus on women who desire to grow their business, 10x their businesses using authoritative messaging, as well as writing content, producing content with written content as well as live video in order to attract their ideal audience and as a result, their ideal clients. So if you're here, definitely comment in the comment section. Let me know that you're here. Hey, Melissa. Hey. I know that this particular conversation is a little bit of a sensitive subject to talk about because marriage has been upheld as a very as a union that we respect. I have been married multiple times, twice to be exact. And I'm going to tell you 100%, I have been a fiance, I have been a wife, I have been a girlfriend, I have been all those things, right? So when Whitney and Shaka Khan say that I'm every woman, I've been that, done that, got the postcard. So as a coach, right? So I've been coaching women for over 3 years. And when I say coaching women, that means on a full-time basis. And I have been able to encounter so many different avenues and experiences and circumstances, triumphs, as well as losses when it came down to women in relationships or women that desire to be in a relationship. And one of the things that I find very interesting in the dynamic of relationship, as well as women who desire to have it all, is the fact of the matter is that I have always said, and this rings to still be true to this day, you will only go as far as the person that you're sleeping with. Okay. You will only go as far as the person that you are in union with. Okay. So not just marriage, but also in relationship, because we know that sex, and I don't want to get like shadow banned on YouTube because I don't know how YouTube works, but I know that when you lay down with someone, that is a very sensitive spiritual exchange. If you lay down with the wrong person, you pick up their personality, you pick up their vision, you pick up their health issues, you pick up the way that they talk, you pick these pieces up, right? So you have to be very conscientious of who you expose your body to, which is very important, right? It's very important. So, hey, Keisha, hey, Sasha. So before I really get rolling into this conversation, I want to stand on record, okay? I want to stand on record in this video by saying the obvious, that I am a supporter of marriage, okay? Being a woman who is considered, and I kind of label myself this, I am a conservative independent, right? So I I know it doesn't seem like it. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I am a conservative independent. Why do I say both of those terms? Why? Because I do believe in the principles of marriage. I do believe in capitalism. I believe in conscious capitalism, which is probably another lie for another day. I say independent because I do believe that people can love who they want to, they can marry who they want to. I just believe that marriage for me, and when it comes down to the vows and things like that, is between a man and a woman. But I also want people to live their best life. And I say, well, if you want to go with this person, then, I'll support you 100%. Right. So anyway, that said, I just wanted to clean the air about that because I don't want people to say, well, she don't believe in marriage. No, yes, I do. I really do. I really do. Because I see marriage as an alliance of two people that have very similar interests. And it's not just about love. I hate to say it like that, but it's not just about love. It's not just about, I love this person, I'm in love with this person, I don't want to be without this person, but you also got to take into account that, hey, Monica, do you have to take into account that women have to be in spaces and in intimacies with people that keep them safe and allow them to be their most creative and best self, right? And men traditionally, right, desire to be with someone who they can protect and provide for in so many ways, but also with understanding that this woman and understanding the womanhood. However, times have shifted and turned and changed over time. Marriage has become almost like an obligatory thing that you need to do and you must do. And if you don't do it by a certain age, you're looked at as a waste of time. You look at it as something is wrong with you. You're looked at as a person who is miserable from the outside. Like, people think you're absolutely miserable if you're 50 years old and you've never been married before. They look at you all crazy. But then also too, I've seen over years where women marry or they are married to men who are not as supportive of their business as they would like for them to be. Or there is a threat to the ego of the husband or the ego of the mate or the ego of the lover when this woman starts to accumulate accolades in her business. So I just want to put that out there, kind of give you the groundwork and the foundation of what we're going to talk about today. So marriage, the earliest ceremony that is recorded in history about marriage was in around 2350 in Mesopotamia. Okay, Mesopotamia. That was the earliest recording of marriage. Okay, I just want to put that out there. So, with that being said, what was marriage originally for? Okay, let's take religion out of the conversation. We're going to take religion out of the conversation. What was marriage originally for? Because marriage turned into a religious concept. It was not always that. It was never, ever meant for two loves of the life to come together and get married. That was never the case. The origin of marriage, the purpose of marriage was intended for the man. That's why I've always I'm not making this up. This is not opinion. This is not a mere you just mad. No, I'm not mad. I've been a wife before. I know I've had a whole wedding. Had a whole big wedding. And then my second wedding was a shotgun wedding in the living room. Okay, so I want to make sure I'm clear. The origin of marriage, or the purpose of it, was for a man. And I'm not these are words that they use. I didn't use these. Okay, so I had to put quotations around it because I don't want y'all to be thinking, oh, you just know it's not. And yes, it is. The origin of marriage purpose for a man to own. Okay, I'm coming from the law of neutrality on this. To own a woman and to guarantee that children were the biological heirs. Oh, do I need to read it again so I can? Okay. The origin of marriage and purpose for marriage was for a man to own a woman and to guarantee that children were the biological heirs. This was all about property and wealth. Okay. This is why traditionally we would see fathers, dads give their daughters away to the man, right? The husband or the man that was looking for this woman's hand in marriage saw her as what? Let's even go to the nitty-gritty. The purpose was to guarantee him heirs. He saw her as fertile. Ownership. Okay, so this is why the original mantra or the manifesto for the father was, I pledge my daughter for the purpose of producing legitimate offspring. I just want y'all to understand, when y'all say traditional, this is what this is talking about. Okay? Like traditional. No, you're looking to be owned. So ownership means lordship. This is where Lord came, like the whole Lord. That's where it came from. This is why women were considered to be always daughters. So they went from father to a lord. This is why also the woman back then was expected to obey her husband. She was seen as the second tier. There was the hierarchy, which was God, man, woman. So which means that what if you're in a chain system, in a hierarchical system, then the woman could not go above the man. She was suppressed to ownership. She was to worship what he worshiped, who he worshiped. She was to do and run the house like he wanted it to. That's why you have a lot of men out here that says, well, my wife, no, I like my house like this. And then we also have on the flip side where women felt like, well, I run this house. No, you don't run it, because the husband is supposed to set order. So the man lorded over the house and the property. Okay, so that was in the patriarchy. Okay, so that's the patriarchy, that's the white European concept. Okay, so there it is. Now let's move over to marriage becoming mainstream. Okay, so then we went from wealth to now the religious aspect. Okay, so let's go here. The law of coverture. I want y'all to really hear what I'm saying. I don't know how many times I've talked about this, but anyway, this woman, the woman during the times of, what was that? European, like back in the 1800s, okay? Back in the 1800s, the law of coverture or coverture, I hope I'm saying it right. Coverture was the legal doctrine that decreed, this was back in Europe, Okay, England, the crown. Okay, so again, we are not even in religion yet. We're not even in religion. Okay, so the law of coverture was the legal doctrine that decreed that upon marriage, a woman's property. So if this woman had property that was inherited, that if their father left her property, if a father left his child, which was a daughter, property, businesses, land, etc. Okay, that was considered wealth, right? Land, which is the highest form of wealth in this nation. Okay, I'm putting that out there. All of her property was passed into the hands of her husband. All her real property came under his control and ownership. He could not sell it without her consent, but he was given rights to all of the profits and gains and income. All right. She could not sue or be sued, but it stripped a woman of control over real and personal property. Okay, so I just want to put that out there. Married women back then, this was before the whole feminist movement. Okay, I am not a feminist, but I appreciate the feminist concept and the feminist principle. I'm gonna tell you why. Because a lot of women talk about feminism was a detriment. No, it wasn't. Now, were there extremes? Yes. There was extremes to the feminist movement. Absolutely, 100%. But feminism was good for women in many different ways. Number one, it allowed women to open up bank accounts without their husband's consent. We did not have to go and ask a man or our daddies or a man to go with us to the bank and so they can open up an account for us. And they were the primary account holders, which means they can take your money anytime. Okay. We were able to do we could now own property. So women did not have to go through men to do any of those things. I'm just telling you, okay? So this is why there's sometimes a conflict when you want to do something. They had to have the permission of the husband. I just want to throw that out there. The original marriage was polygamy based. If the woman that he married could not give birth, which happened in the Bible, right? You know, Abraham, Jacob, the love of their life could not give birth. So they were open to taking on another woman, whether she was a mistress or another wife, to potentially give him an heir, because of the woman he loved, and usually the first wife is the woman he loves. It usually is. Not in Jacob's case, if you know the story on that. But most men married the love of their lives first. But it was because they knew that she could produce two, but not in all cases. So what does this have to do with success? Okay, now we're moving into religion, right? We're moving into the religious aspect. So I'm trying to see how I can put this, because I'm trying to, are y'all following me? Okay, so when we talk about the Genesis, right? The book of Genesis, we usually look at the beginning, Adam and Eve, right? There was a covenant. Uh-oh. Am I good? Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure I'm good. Okay, because I didn't know if I was going out or in or out or in. Um, so when we get to the Bible, right? We get to the Bible and things get very interesting, right? So the law of coverture was out, right? And then we have what is all about the Genesis, the book of Genesis, when it comes down to Adam and Eve, right? So Eve was Adam's wife. This was what the Bible stated. This was what quote unquote constitutes a biblical marriage. Now, even though there was not a ceremony, right? We don't know how that came to be. But at the end of the day, the marriage was consummated, right? So women in actuality, if that is the case, then without a ceremony, the breaking of the hymen, right, of the woman's, the JJ was was, meant that they were married. So that's why soul tie and cleansing is necessary, because many times we are still carrying the spirits of different husbands, especially when you compare your husband to exes and stuff like that. So you got to be careful of that too, because all of that can be intertwined as to why you may feel some type of way about your husband or about your mate or about your partner. Okay, so that's that. So let's get into the wealth origins and then religion, and looking at that as the pinnacle of the creative aspect. So the thing is, even in the Old Testament, it talks about how this person became, so and so as the wife and da 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 da. So the thing is that we saw men marry women that they didn't even like love. Okay, we saw men that married women that they didn't really have a connection with. So these things, these mentalities began to just roll into age to age to age as we get to modern day society, which is back around about the 1700s and 1800s. So when people came from Europe over to the Americas, if you will, and then also, slave trade and all this other stuff was going on. What was happening also in that same regard is that marriage still was looked at as ownership, right? The woman was like land, the new world, right? So you had the Americas and the Central America, you had South America, you had the colonization of all of these areas. Even with that being said, because let's just be 100% real right here. The European won the war. To be honest, every indigenous people are conquered people. We just are, right? So who holds the principles? The European, and this has nothing to do with, oh, she's being this and she's being that. No, we worship who they worship. We acquire what they acquire. We uphold the mindset that they have. That's just facts. Like, when you start going down a rabbit hole through this stuff, you'll start like, oh, that's why we do this. Like I told you a long time ago, even down to our hair, the way we wear our hair, the way we dress. We don't dress in our ethnic garments. We don't dress we don't wear, especially like women of color, we usually put on a wig, or we wear our hair long, we keep a weave, right? Indigenous people keep our hair straight. Why is that? The European principles. Okay, just want to put that out there. So, but that is to only feel as if you're being desired by the male. So it is innate for women, especially the way we're wired. I'm not going to even go into that today, but I feel like we are just a hybrid. Like, we have evolved, but we're a multi-evolutionary species. I really feel like we were not the same that we were way back then. I do believe that there has been some evolution to take place, because now, and I think, I ain't gonna go into, I ain't gonna even go there. I'm gonna keep that to myself. I do believe that we have evolved as women, right, to want to have babies, to want to be protected and provided for. That was the evolution. So women who defied that, right, women who went against that tradition were simply labeled as women who were wild, who were unkept, right? Women who they were loose, fast, right? Women of the night. Like those were women that were like, oh, she's out there and she's doing this and a third. So those women that went against tradition were negatively labeled, right? So, but guess what happens though? The women who were under the male principle, the male perspective, the patriarchy, that married, they were only to prepare to be married. All this other stuff, dreams, goals, visions, they were not considered. A lot of women even went to college and found their mate, got married right out of college. I was one of them. I got married straight out of college. I walked across the stage. 5 months later, I'm somebody's wife. Had a baby 2 years later. So in some ways, marriage was very appealing to a lot of women, because guess what? You had somebody to be with and have babies with and this and the third. But then also you had the religious context that was all about, it is better to marry than to burn. Husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church. And it's something where men were ordered to love their wives, but women were taught to respect their husbands, because women technically did not love their husbands back then. They just were with them to feel safe and secure. That was the only reason why women back then got married, was because they wanted to feel safe. They got married to survive. It was unheard of for women to be, that's why a lot of moms used to ask, well, don't you want to get married? Don't you want to find somebody to, because why? Women were seen as emotionally unhinged. I'm gonna say that again. Coming from a somebody who used to struggle with their emotions and gotten so much better. But that was because of the marriage concept. Women are naturally emotional. Do y'all understand that? Do y'all know that? You know why I say that? Because look, cycles. We have menstrual cycles. Every 21, 28 days, we're looking crazy. Some of us worse than others. PMS, which is neither here nor there, but we're in a capitalist society. So pain is seen as profitable, right? So you have women thinking that something was absolutely bat crazy with them, wrong with them, but in actuality, her cycle is getting ready to come on in a few days. So she's raging like a lunatic because she doesn't have any emotional management training. So the men had to tame the woman. And if men were not tuned in to the feminine like that, he would get riled up with her, right? So anyway, that's that. So women were seen to be unhinged. So getting married was one of the ways that women felt that would be better for them because of the lack of emotional training. Are y'all getting that? So let's talk about business. The hierarchy, the top down, is all about God, husband, man, or man, y'all know, and then the children. So the patriarchy, which is ruled under the age of Pisces, I talked about that all the time. The age of Pisces were all about two fish, right? So it's maybe about two fish. And then you also see Jesus, that is the symbol of the fish. Two fish, 5 loaves of bread. Two fish, he was all about fish. Even when he went to get Peter was a fisherman. That was his business, right? And so it was all about catching fish. But he said, I can teach you how to be a fisher of men, right? So it was all about catching people and converting them, right? So anyway, so men were seen as powerful agents because they didn't have that emotional control issue that we did, quote unquote. Even though I felt like men were always more emotional than women, it's just that men hold it in and it combusts or implode at some point if you let them. So with that being said, right, women were seen as emotionally unhinged, and women were also seen as young vessels. And most of the time they would encourage girls to get married at a very young age. Why is that? Because they could be groomed to be under the ownership. If you had a woman who was 40, 35, 40, 45 years old, she's already set in her ways. You can't train her. So she's going to backtalk everything you say because she didn't been there, done that. She got wisdom. She know exactly what's going on. A younger woman, if she is not raised under people that were training her up to be wise, she was under the thumb and the rulership of that man. Now, let's go to 1900s, right? I can even, if you've ever seen, what's her name? Madam C.J. Walker. Okay, Madam C.J. Walker. So if you don't know about that movie, I would strongly encourage you to go see it. I know there are some fictional, elements of that movie, but some of it rang really true. Like how she treated her husband, I felt like that was kind of in alignment almost to how she really treated him in real life. So that woman had a dream. She had a dream. She was tired of being a second-class citizen. She was tired of being segregated, and being made to be inferior just because she was a Black woman. And she started a business based on somebody else's idea. That just happened. It was what it was, right? She became very successful. Her husband's name was a part of the empire, CJ, right? CJ Walker. So anyway, she was married before and then she got married again. So what I'm saying is that she had dreams and goals. Her husband supported her. But then when she started to get too big, this is where we're going. Here we go. When she started to get too big in her success, he started to feel very inferior. He started to feel unseen. He started to feel like everybody was looking at her, but not looking at him. So then problems started. Her dreams began to take priority over the marriage, quote unquote, right? That man was all in up until she started to expand. Y'all can see where I'm going with this? So what is that dynamic like? Because we see that even on micro mini scale, right? We don't see that on a big scale, but we have seen that in micro mini scale when it comes down to some relationships. And when you start to acquire and expand success, that's when we see the threat from the partner, from the spouse, from the person you're in a relationship with, which is why most times you will hear people say things like, remember your family, or I don't want to feel like this. I don't want to feel like you're abandoning the family. What is the dinner still going to be cooked? What about the children? Right? Well, we still have to pay the bills. No, I want you to stay on this job because we still got an obligation. So then the marriage aspect went from building for wealth to building and getting married for love. And when we started doing that, I think that's when all hell broke loose in the marriage scene. I really do. I know y'all gonna hate me for this, but I really feel like that's what happens, because love goes in and out. It is not always conditional. I mean, unconditional. We are in modern times of social media. Okay. Unfortunately, this is where the world has turned to. We're in the social media, AI, robotics era, where people can have access to different information, images, videos, all kinds of things without the spouse even knowing. And I'm not saying that y'all need to go check up on y'all man's phone or nothing. I am not saying it. Not saying it. But what I can say is that you have to be very conscientious of and y'all can ask questions in the comment section. Please, please feel free to do that. When we have women who become very successful in their relationships, a couple of things happen, right? The man either gets very excited and they're rooting the woman all the way. I mean, I would strongly encourage looking at Tabitha Brown and her husband, even though there's some things I'm kind of like, with, but I love them both. I love Tabitha for sure. But at the same time, he had to evolve with her success. There are some men that have to do the work, because there will be other people around him saying, oh, you letting your woman do all that? Oh, you allowing your woman to da 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 da. Divorce, Sasha, there you go. You took the words right out of my mouth. When people started marrying for love, right? I'm in love. Well, that's the reason why that started to happen, is because, and this is, you can look this up if you want to, when men of power, right? Just look at the Cinderella story. Look at this. That I don't even have to go far. Look at the story of Cinderella. That gives you a good example right there of how it used to be. Men of power had all the women that were interested in being his wife, right? When he came into town, the women were running. That's what I'm saying. Like, y'all to my competition, they were competing to be safe. Women wanted to be seen so bad. They would rose up their cheeks. They would put on corset, right? To cinch their waist tight as they could. And then they would have their hips, because they wanted to accentuate the hips. Having hips was a symbol of fertility. I want y'all to hear what I'm saying. So when people say, I love my husband, why did you so women back then, they just didn't even care. They was like, just pick me. Those were the real pick me's back then, baby. The stepsisters of Cinderella, pick me, pick me, pick me. I'm in line. Like, I want to be safe. I want to be in a place where I feel like I'm always taken care of. So the wealth class was always about the woman being taken care of because of the children. And usually the man would die first and leave the wife with the children, and she would be able to distribute the wealth among them. And if that man was good to that woman, he would make sure that she didn't marry again. Drinking a cold press juice, so good, from a local juicer. So this is the reason why when we say marry for love, we're marrying per conditions and the lack of conditions, but under the wrong conditions. Because people will say things like, oh, I married my husband, we were staying in one bedroom apartment and we didn't care, and we did, but then how they die, or how that woman never felt safe. Even though, yes, I could say that my husband is the bomb, I think he's amazing, I think I love him, da 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 da. But when men marry without the proper wealth backing, it's harder for women to create. I had to learn this through and through. Because for a woman to feel safe, the man usually already had his crap together. That's why that's why when I listen to men now, it's like, what you bring to the table. It's like, where's your table? Because if y'all want traditional wives, you got to have a table already. And I already know people say, well, we were so young. We were so young when we got married. Well, that's the thing too, is that when you're young and a man wanted to marry a woman, the daddy usually did not give the child, the woman up, the daughter up, because guess what? What am I giving her to you for when you don't have anywhere for her to live? If you want me to bear your children, sir, you got to already have a house for her to sit in. Because back then, pregnancy was seen as one of the closest things to death. And after she had to heal, then after she healed, because during the healing process, it was normalized for the mom, for her to have a nurse, for her to have someone to come and help her with the baby, for her, because she what happened? Because she needed to heal, she needed to be alone, and then also to reconnect with the husband. So when we pressure people to get married just because they love each other, we're actually setting them up for the okie doke. Because if you have a daughter, and I got one, so I'm telling you straight up, I'm not giving no blessing to any man who does not have his crap together first. Credit score, land, house. You need to be able to have somewhere for her to go to, even if she have her own. But nowadays we have men that they don't even ask the daddies. And the daddies sometimes ain't even there. And if the daddies are there because they grew up not having what they were supposed to have, a lot of them just said yeah to the man because, well, I ain't have nothing either. We had to build, but y'all are still working. Both of y'all still living paycheck to paycheck. That's not what marriage was supposed to be about. Because now we have marriage that is built for wealth, and then we have marriage to breed workers, which is under the religious concept. Here we go. So when women decide at some level, right, to own something, usually home-based businesses were the first on the rise back in early 2000s, late 99, somewhere around it, but early 2000s, where the internet.com era started, the infopreneur started to be birthed. So blogs, women started to chronicle their mommy journeys at home. This is how home-based businesses started to be birthed. Stay-at-home moms and stay-at-home wives began to chronicle their time at home. They started to talk about resources like where to get your bottles, where to get clothes, the best schools, pacifiers, how to take care of your child if you're homeschooling. That's how home-based businesses started, okay? But what happened also was that it became popular because more and more women started to be at home. They started to be at home and they started to have more success. So people started asking, can they advertise on their sites? Because their sites started to gain popularity. So then what started to happen, if the man was cool. He started to see that woman as like, wow, okay, we're making some money, right? The woman began to share this with her husband because that was what was expected. But then you had some husbands that were like, no, you need to calm down because you're making a whole lot of money and we still got to do this. Well, you need to put that blog down and you need to start being more available for the family. You're getting behind on cleaning and all this other stuff. So you had men that were completely supportive, and you had some men who just couldn't take it. So that was the start of that home-based business concept. And then it just ramped up since then. So what happens now is that you have more women that are working from home, starting businesses from home. Why is that? Because women are usually in control of the children. It is easier for women to stay at home with their babies than it is to go out there in the workforce to work because she could be at home and be more available for her children. Some men didn't like that. They wanted them to be at home, cleaning and cooking and being pretty for them. A lot of them say, well, I don't want you to work. And some of them were saying, well, I want you to work. So I didn't want you to stay at home. I want you to go outside and work. Because many women did not realize that if they want to say, well, I want to stay home, well, we got to have money for that, right? So they would send them to a job and make them work. And when I say make them, I'm not saying command it, but there was the understanding to keep the household afloat so that whatever you wanted to do, it could be done. But innately, women want to be with their babies. I'm going to say that again. Women wanted to be at home with their babies. They didn't want to send them to a daycare. They didn't want them to send them to, them to go to another place to be taken care of. They wanted to be at home with their babies. And they had triggers every time they would drop their children off at daycare, so they can go and work. So now we're in a season, in a time where we're seeing more and more women acquire businesses or start and grow businesses. And men have a little bit of an issue with that, especially in a conservative marriage. Because if the woman is building to the place where she is not involving her husband, if she is not putting her husband in the space of the business and really giving him the opportunity to see, and that's why I tell women who are married that are my clients, is that it's so important that you start having these conversations and having these conversations to root him in his security. Because I'm going to tell you this, the energy shift. The women initially want to feel safe by the husband. But then when the woman starts to climb, this is why I'm getting preached right here. When the women start to climb in her profits, what happens if the man is not in his secured space, in his Godship, in his wealth mindset? What happens is he starts to get threatened. You're going to leave me. She's going to leave me. Don't y'all know that is natural? That's the patriarchy. That's why I told y'all, go back to what I said about me. I did all that backup to show y'all this is where this consciousness came from. When partners get nervous, when their mates and partners, their wives start to grow in their income, what happens? There's a threat. This is also the reason why a lot of times women don't go as far as they need to, because why? The man says, hold on. Y'all, please help me. I know I'm telling the truth. This is why even when men hear that a woman is doing well in her business, he instantly has to make a decision in his mind and say, This woman can leave. She can leave anytime she wants to. But you know how crazy it? Not that she's smart. Not that she's, man, we could build something together. Like I got my stuff going on. I got a business over here and she got her business over here. We can be partners and we can slingshot this thing. But you already got to have something. It ain't no building. We can merge. But if there is nothing from that man, he's going to either see you as an opportunist to come up for himself, to get information and access from you. But most men see that as a threat. They cannot take a woman who is doing well in her life as far as the business is concerned. They get very nervous. The first thing that men usually think is, are you going to leave me? I want you to leave me. I want you to leave. Because it's this is why most times, if you are not like having these conversations with the man, if a man did not see you when y'all first got married as someone who was already driven, there's a likely chance that he doesn't see you in that powerhouse mentality. Men have to feel safe too, that you're not going to run away from them. Because if a man has a wife that leaves him, he is seen almost as, oh man, she just walked out on you. A man is usually ostracized and criticized, and a woman is celebrated when she gets a divorce because she feels like, oh, she's free now. That mentality and that actually comes from that consciousness right there. The ownership. So I just want to make this very, very clear that if you are struggling in your business right now, or you find yourself like spontaneous, sporadic in your business, it's because you're feeling as if there is a little bit of a threat that you don't want to threaten your mate. You don't want to threaten your spouse. You don't want to make them feel incomplete, or you don't want them to feel like they are going to, that they're going to lose you. Sasha said, instead of getting threatened, why don't they just make more money? That is absolute 100% a very good point. Mo says, I have these deep convos when dating. I was told by a guy, if I end up making more money than him, he would not have anything to offer me. And that's sad, right? So you have men that literally give up. They only want you to succeed to a certain degree. Well, if you leave me, or what am I going to be useful for if you don't stay? So that's why I said, you either got to have somebody who already knows your drive, and you don't come up with something 3 years in talking about, I want to do this, because that's what happened to my first marriage. I was not driven until Maddie came in the picture. I don't know what turned on for me, but when Maddie came into the picture, I was like, I want to do something like massively big, because I was nowhere near driven prior to her coming into this world. But there are men that literally feel like this, like, I don't know what I'm useful for. Why is that the case? Because it goes back to the man providing for the woman and him owning over her. Because there's still an ownership piece to that. But if marriage has to shift in its purpose, because now we have a lot of women and divorce is up. The great divorce is happening. We got the great mental depression and we got the great divorce. There's a lot of men and a lot of women that are splitting up. Like marriages aren't even lasting long like they used to. Why is that? Because women have freedom. Women know how to make money. Women know how to survive. Women know how to root their emotions. They have resources for that. There's still some women that are still struggling with that. But when we see women who are emotionally unhinged or emotionally erupt, they're very, very committed to finding a male partner. They're very obsessed with it because they feel like they cannot handle their emotions to even pay their own bills. And even the ring, like we'll say, oh, well, this is to let people know I'm married so that people won't approach me with them, silliness and just to honor my commitment. No, but that also means ownership. The woman is owned. That's why she has her diamonds. The diamond is supposed to symbolize, y'all, I'm not making this up. The diamond is supposed to symbolize how much that man loves her and how big it is so that other men will be warded off. Because if they see how big that diamond is, they'll say, oh, I can't compete with that. I can't compete with that ring. That diamond is huge. And the bigger the diamond, they always say, the bigger the diamond, the bigger the love from that man. Now that's historical over time. Now, obviously there are non-traditional values, there are other, ways of, but that was what it was traditionally about. Again, this was in the wealth class. Okay. I just want to make sure I'm certain on that. It's always showing, yes, Vanessa, yep, diamond is showing his wealth. So what we are doing now, right, as it pertains to relationships, marriages, women are feeling as if like, I don't want to threaten my husband. I don't want to make my husband feel this, that, and the third. Well, for the woman to feel secure and for the man to feel secure, they got to start having normalized conversations, because if you start a business to build wealth, you don't start a business just to have something to do. Some women think that. They think that, oh, I'm just going to have something to do because I'm bored at home, or I just want to use this as a creative outlet. That's not the reason why you start a business. And this is the reason why we tell ourselves these things, is because we don't want to seem like we're trying to overpower the male. That's so off. Because we'll say how, oh, I'm meant for wealth, but then we don't act like, we don't start acquiring the principles. Because if the man is still working a 9 to 5, and the children are not being groomed and prepared to build wealth, what you are doing is simply just talking, because nothing is happening. We don't invest in ourselves. We don't give. We don't say, okay, I'm really serious about it. I have had so many conversations with women that have husbands, and they'll say, well, I got to run this by my husband. I got to talk to him about this. And then her husband will come back and say, well, that's too expensive. Why is she charging that much? You don't need that. You know why? Because the man sees that as a liability. He sees his wife as a liability. That's not coming from my attitude or mood or expression about that. He sees that if I give you this money to put into this business, you're going to lose it. And it's going to take away from the household. And that's not what we're going to do right now. And then if you get successful, you're going to possibly leave. And I ain't having it either. Because why wouldn't you want your woman to be successful? See, okay, so now we're switching, going into a new age where now we have to start looking at wealth and business in a completely different perspective. Because if women are now going to invest in coaching, they've got to first see themselves as a fertile ground. I have seen men leave their wives when they start to get successful. When they start making $15,000 and $20,000 and $25,000 months, the man gets instantly threatened if he is not properly positioning himself to understand what his wife is doing. Because this is the thing, wives have always been the symbols of wealth because we birth them, right? So we birth heirs. We birth heirs. Because if it's not for the man, then who is it going to be for? Just FYI. We've got to start having these conversations. And the man has to be okay. Like, are you okay if I reach $1 million? What would that look like for you? Like, if I get to $2 million in my business within a year, what would you think about that? When you hear men say things like, well, shoot, yeah, do what you got to do, man. We can travel, we can do this, and we do. When they start going there, that's a red flag as well. When they start thinking about liabilities and travel and get things done to we can do this and we can do that. No, what about trust funds? What about securing the wealth for the children? What about securing property and expanding our wealth portfolios instead of going straight to going and buy stuff and getting land? I mean, getting stuff and buying shades and hats and going to concerts. It's literally about wealth. So this is why we have to start having these conversations, because men that are not poised for wealth, they need to start understanding where wealth is and where it comes from and how to obtain it. So when a woman is building her business, the man needs to also be simultaneously learning about the financial wellness at the next level, which means what? Stocks, learn about real estate, learning about the consciousness of the wealthy, like networking, building business contacts and connections, and start building that infrastructure up. If they are still working a 9 to 5 and they're still complaining about the job and all this other stuff, and they're not doing the work within to start accepting that, then the woman is at a detriment of only staying in the middle class. She will never, ever ascend to the wealth class. It will not happen. Because if the husband is not leading in that on the other side of things, you don't need to start asking your mate these questions. What would you do? And if they say something like, well, we can travel and go somewhere, that's not the answer I was looking for. The answer I was looking for was, we can buy some real estate, we can buy some this, and we can buy some that. Because you're not building a business to go and just travel. You're building a business to extend your wealth trajectory. That's what you're doing it for. So y'all be very, very conscientious when you say you want to start a business. And if you're going to go all the way and you have a husband and you have a mate, you have a partner, like, they can be supportive of you investing in yourself, but are they okay with you quantum shifting and quantum leaping into your destiny? That's the real $64 million question. And unfortunately, there's not much that you can really do with a man who has not started to position themselves and poise themselves for wealth also. I'm just telling you. You will only go as far as him being the leader of your home. If you are moving in your business and you're growing your business, and your husband is not actively poised himself to also grow in the wealth trajectory, that is a red flag altogether. That man needs to also be actively working on his mindset as well, and working on wealth as well, because the marriage was made for him. And I don't really care what society is saying. That's what marriage is for until we start changing the narrative of how we marry. Because you don't marry just for love. Of course you marry for love, but you don't marry just for that. Okay. The digital lead her is open. The digital lead her is open. We have one more slot. We just closed up the one slot this morning. We have one more slot and we get started tomorrow. So I'm really excited about that. And we're moving the needle for women. Women are now the new, it's the normalized way of building businesses that's going to last. Women are now seen as the cure. But we got to give women a root themselves too. All right. Love y'all so much. Definitely subscribe to this channel. Definitely share this video. I'm glad that y'all came. Let's get to work. And if you want to learn more about the program, come right on in. We are ready to have you. All right. Take care. Y'all have a good one. Bye.